Hello and welcome back to the Relentless Sportsman channel. Have you ever thought about all the people that go fishing but never fish on rivers? You ever thought about that? Now there are many reasons for this and we don't have time to get into that, but my goal and something I'm very passionate about is to make river fishing simpler and better for everybody. So in this video I have 3 rules that I'm going to share with you. Here is rule number 1. So rule number 1 is really simple, and that is knowing the difference between river fish and lake fish. In other words, how do lake fish behave in comparison to river fish? There's quite a big difference, and once you understand the difference, it's going to make river fishing a lot easier. Lake fish are much more prone to hunting, which means they're going to swim around looking for fish that they can eat and prey on. River fish are ambush hunters. What they're going to do is they're going to sit behind something or next to something and wait for fish to come down to them. They're going to allow current to bring the food down the river rather than them having to go out and hunt for it. There's a big difference. And once you understand that, where you position your baits and how you fish rivers is going to completely change your success. Check out this video. I've got a great example right here for you.
Got him. Nice. That's a nice one. Beautiful fish. Wow.
So I believe what you just saw was a prime example of how river fish wait to ambush their prey. That fish that I just caught, that smallmouth, was waiting behind the boulder for something to come down the current into the strike zone of that fish. Oftentimes what they do is they wait in one spot. If something comes down that they're interested in, they're going to strike it because they're waiting in that spot. So getting your bait in the strike zone of the fish is very important. You want to get in the exact spot and pinpoint these sections that fish are going to be in most likely. Rule number 2, target fish near isolated structure. What does this mean? Rapids, it can be boulders, it can be a small patch of weeds, right? A lot of times on lakes you see massive patches of weeds. You see lily pads that go on for acres and acres and acres. And yeah, there's fish in there, but it's really random where you're going to find them. On a river, you have a huge advantage because you can eliminate so much water by looking for isolated structure. The key isolated structure that I want you to focus on: weeds, boulders, logs, rapids. Now rapids and boulders kind of go along with each other, but it's kind of the same idea. You're not going to see, in most cases on rivers, acres and acres of boulders just all over. It's usually in one spot, and then the river kind of calms down, and then there's a rapids again, then it calms down, then there's a rapids again. Whenever you see isolated structure of weeds, boulders, or logs, they can be down trees, whatever, that's a spot you've got to key in on for rule number 2. So check out this video example for rule number 2. Got him. Pike. That makes sense. Isolated weeds like that, I purposely go for those in order to catch a pike. This is a nice eater. Oh, don't go underneath the trolling motor. That's a nice one. There we go. Nice. So you see isolated weeds, it works really, really well, especially for pike, but for a lot of other species as well. Sorry, my GoPro was tilted down. There were a lot of flies out that night, so I accidentally bumped it with my arm. That's a great example of rule number 2, isolated structure. Before I get to rule number 3, the biggest and most important rule of them all for river fishing, please consider subscribing to my channel if you have not. I've looked at the analytics. I've noticed that a lot of people that watch my videos, and thank you for doing that if you're one of them, but a lot of people that watch my videos have not subscribed. They just watch my videos. So please consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel and I appreciate it. Here's rule number 3. Fish off current. In other words, don't fish where the water is moving quickly on the river. Fish cannot swim and sustain themselves in that all day long. On occasion, yeah, they're going to swim out there, they're going to feed, they're going to be active, but most of the time, fish are in off-current waters. This can be an eddy, a backwater slough. This includes behind rocks and boulders, particularly by rapids. This can be within the weeds itself, behind a log, off to the sides where the river isn't as fast with the current. There's a lot of places where fish can be that are off current, more than you probably think. So when you're fishing, Don't cast right in the middle of the current. It's probably not going to be worth your time. Almost all the time, I should say, you're going to catch fish and find fish in off-current situations. Another great place you can find fish is right on the current seam. A current seam is simply where there's slow water next to fast water. What a lot of fish do is they hang out in the current seam or right next to it. They look upstream. When the current's coming down, they're facing upstream, waiting to attack the fish coming down that they want to feed on or any kind of prey. They're on the off current because they're right in that current seam. Check out this example of how to fish a current seam being right on the edge of the fast water and the slow water. Check it out.
Yeah,
Same spot.
Like sitting right where they are. It seems to be right where the fast current goes to the slow current.
Yeah, it's on the current seam. Okay. It's about like the one I had before. The last one, I mean. Oh!
Bigger.
That's bigger. It didn't fight as much.
Yeah, the other one was. Yeah, the other one.
Yeah, I guess so. That's a long one.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
All right, so let's review. Rule number 1. River fish ambush their prey. Lake fish, in general, are much more active hunters swimming around looking for their prey. Rule number 2. Target fish near isolated structures. That usually means downstream of logs, small weed sections, and boulders. And finally, rule number 3, fish off current. This one's huge because fish are not going to stay in that fast current all day. What they're going to do is they're going to go where the current slows down because it's much easier for them to sustain and to save energy, and they're going to not use as much energy as possible. They're going to want to save that up. So rule number 3, really look for that. Current seam, eddies, sloughs, behind a log, whatever, anything that slows down the current, there's going to be a fish there, or at least there's a good chance there's going to be a fish there. And if you apply all 3 of these rules the next time you fish a river, there's a good chance you're going to have a lot of success and a great time in doing so. And once again, thank you for spending your time with me and checking out this video. I really appreciate it. If you haven't, please consider subscribing to the Relentless Sportsman channel. It really helps the channel grow. I really appreciate that. As always, I hope you learned something new on this video. That's kind of the goal of this channel, is to teach new things each and every week. Stay tuned for an upcoming video next week. Bye-bye.